just like commit to something, like make a decision and like stand behind the consequences. You know what I mean? Like pass on the album, and if it gets best new music, then like egg on your face. Like, you know what I mean? Don't be the person, like, you know, because like,
yes,
I don't know.
Yes. Welcome to Why Not Both, the podcast all about how our multiple passions shape our identity and our lives. I'm your host, Pam Schaefer, and our producer is Laura Studeris. This season, we are brought to you by Under the Radar magazine. If you like what you hear, you can head over to our Patreon to support us directly and get transcripts of all of our episodes, or you can come hang out with us on your favorite social media platforms, where we can be found under WNB the podcast. This week, we welcomed the wonderful Mal Blum to our show. I hope that you enjoy our chat. Welcome to Why Not Both? That's normal. No, like seeing your power tool collection, I was just like, I bought my first power tool and I didn't know. I went to Home Depot and asked them for an electric screwdriver, and no one knew what I was talking about because what I wanted was a drill.
Yeah. Well, actually, oh my God. I just said, well, actually, Jesus fucking Christ. Oh my God. Sorry.
Into the sun.
Oh my God.
You're like, goodbye.
My biggest fear, becoming all the men I hated. No, there is something that you're describing though that is actually different than a drill.
Really?
Which is, yes, it's called an impact driver, and it's almost exactly like a drill, except it's just for electric screwing. Yes, so they were wrong. You were right.
Oh my God. I talked to 3 different people and described what I needed, and they looked at me like I was from like another planet. And I was like, am I not using the right words? I was like, you know, the pew pew with the spinny for the screws on off.
yeah, which is a drill. It is a drill. But the thing is, okay, so from what I understand, because I was very confused about this at first too.
Yeah.
A drill can do that, and
yes.
But it also can like drill holes into things with a different drill bit. An impact driver, you're just supposed to put the little like screwdriver bits into it, and it's literally just for that. It's an electric screwdriver basically.
Okay.
But it looks almost exactly like a drill.
That's the thing, is I was just like, this has to exist. This must exist.
I'll send you a link. You were right. Validating.
I am just stamp of validation. Because I'm there being just like, this is my first time buying a power tool. And then I was like singing show tunes to myself while taking cabinets apart. And I was like, I've never been more gay. It's like, this is amazing.
All the flavors.
Exactly. I was just like, and we have stepped into the queer identity. I just looked and realized my high-heeled Doc Martens are in frame, which I was just like, this is the tell.
Yes, that's the tell. No,
that's fine. That's fine.
Yeah, I had never owned a power tool prior to the pandemic. And I have ADHD, so I really like, you know, do that thing where I like hyperfixate on a hobby for like 3 months and then like never again, which is, yeah, you're familiar. You do it too? Yeah.
Why do you think I just got a power tool? I already have like bookbinding supplies and things to make crowns and you know, like a circle of markers, and then this explains why we vibe. Okay.
Yeah, for sure. And this podcast will go in many different directions, I'm sure.
Oh yeah. Oh yes. What did you build what were the cycles of hyperfixation?
Oh my God. Yeah, I got really into power tools. I got really into gardening. I had a gardening phase. I got really into, which I'd never done before either. I got really into power tools and building benches specifically. So I would build like a bench every week.
Where did the bench benches go?
Let's see. One of them is outside in the front of the house. It's like a garden bench. One of them's inside next to the table. One of them, the first one I did was really shitty, and that one's like outside to sit on. Oh, and there's one right here, actually. Do you want to see it?
Ah!
Hold on.
See the bench.
All right. Hold on. It's behind this. No, you can't see it yet. Hold on.
Oh, I was just like, I like wood grain. Oh my gosh. Oh, that's a fancy bench. That's fancy.
It's called a Leopold bench. Is the style, and it seems fancy, but for some reason, this is the only design that I could wrap my head around. So like, I was like, that's the one that makes sense to me, and like so I just made like 4 of these benches. Yeah, and I made like, I don't know, I made like I made some shitty stuff too. Like I made this shitty desk, which is I don't know. My biggest thing is I was like, I'm gonna build a mattress frame because they're all so expensive. I can build
yeah.
But for some reason, I don't know, the way my ADD brain works, the dopamine went away midway through building it.
Oh no.
So now I just have the frame and the slats, but the slats have never been hammered in, and there's no mattress on it, and so it's like, I was like, oh, I'll finish that, and it's been 2 months now, and it just went away. I don't know what happened.
That's always the saddest thing. Like that's, I think, why I try to finish projects at what appears to be like a manic pace, just like as fast as possible, because I know that I am in a race against the dopamine supply.
I never realized that consciously until this year, that like that's like, I've known I had ADD since I was 9, but I didn't realize that like, you know, that's why I go through these cycles, and like, and I didn't realize like the dropping or like chemically what was happening. So yeah,
it's yes, it's like what
did you pick up during the pandemic?
Basically this. Oh,
it's new podcast. I didn't realize that.
Well, I started like right before the pandemic. I started on a lark because ADD. And I was just like, I'm a therapist and I'm a musician. And when I'm doing music, it feels weird to talk to people about the therapy world. And then in the therapy world, people think it's like weird and exotic that I do music stuff. And I was like, I wonder who else does multiple things and how that like informs their sense of identity. I should talk to people. And so I did, and and people started listening to it, and I was like, oh, well, that's cool. And then my good friend, who's now the producer of the podcast, like at the start of 2020 was like, hey, I've been working in music journalism for a long time. Do you want any help, like booking people? Like, do you need any production help? And I was like, oh, that could be fun. And she was just like, yeah, I usually do travel writing, but like, for a few weeks I have to stay home.
A few weeks. We did think that.
And so it really just spiraled from there. And as weird as it sounds, this is one of the few things, other than music, this is one of the things I've been most consistent on, because I was accountable to her. Like there were points in it that, because now this is, I think, I've talked to close to 120 people now.
Wow.
Which is wild. And like, I don't think I would have had, like, the dopamine wore off and then it came back, and then it wore off and then it came back, but I stuck with it because I was like, oh no, my friend is stuck at home and can't do her job, and this is the consistent thing that's keeping her going. I'm gonna do it. And like, I've never done that before. Usually I have the mattress frame with the slats next to it, or maybe I haven't even bought the slats yet. It's usually that. And so like, this was a different thing because I was accountable to someone else, and I wanted to do good by them. And then I realized like that I could get through the low dopamine as long as there's someone else there. That social motivator. I was just like, I got you, buddy.
Yeah, I love group work. It's interesting hearing you describe the conceit of the podcast that way because I know exactly what you're talking about. Like I was just experiencing this like a few days ago and like thinking about like it's sort of this like two different areas of my life like and coming together and it feeling kind of really awkward, you know?
Yeah. What areas were like I described it one time to someone that I feel like they're all different facets. Like it's kind of like a little chaos emerald and they're all the different facets of it, but I am a unified. But I guess like what different things were you like gluing together in a collage?
Well, I mean, there's a lot of different there's a lot of different things about me. Obviously, it's kind of like um, you know, like I've had a lot of different selves. It's just kind of just like the nature of figuring out you're a transsexual, you know. But but this has nothing to do with any of that. This is well, it's a little dark to talk about, but it doesn't feel super dark to me because it's just been like sort of my daily life for a little while. But let's see. I developed a friendship with one of my neighbors who is older. She's 79, and she's like super interesting. Like we have like a very real friendship, and her life is incredibly weird. She's incredibly weird. Like we would have to have like 100 podcasts for me to explain her to you. She's just like wild person.
Wow.
Yeah, like yeah, you can't even imagine. Like talk about she's had like probably 100 lives, but and not all of them great, and she's not always nice, but she is really interesting, and so I became really like good friends with her. You know, it was like at first I was just sort of doing neighborly things with her, like whatever yard work or like sweeping something or like help. Sometimes she would like come over for dinner or
Yeah.
whatever. But then she got sick. She got really sick, and she was like, I'm not going to do treatment. Fuck that. And she probably a few months ago started the journey of like hospice care.
Oh wow.
And it was like for a while, it was a little bit of a dance finding like the right caretakers and stuff. Because hospice doesn't actually provide caretakers. I don't know. A lot of people don't know that.
Right.
Yeah. Are you familiar at all?
Yeah, it's basically it's end of care life where it's end of life care. There we go. Where they just want you to be as comfy as possible as you're going through this transitional experience, but it's not like intervention care.
They will provide, well, at least this hospice, and I think it's pretty typical, though I don't know. They'll provide like materials. They'll provide like a doctor to sort of come every few months to check, and then like towards the end of life, when it's like the end dying stages, when you're like kind of actively dying, I think is the term they use. That then they come in and they're there. But until that point, if you're in your home, like you have to hire. Unless you, unless you qualify for like government help, you have to like pay private caretakers to come and sort of be there, whatever. So it was like kind of a dance figuring that out with her. And so for a while it was like me.
Wow.
And then we found two other people, and so it was like 3 shifts, and it would be like they would do 2 shifts and I would do 1 shift, like kind of thing. And like I was next door, so she at first she didn't really want caretakers, so like she would just call me when she needed something. But like as her sort of mobility decreased, like it became like she should have somebody there for more and more time. Like she shouldn't. So just recently so then, but now so it went on like a few months like that, where I was there pretty much every day. And obviously I have no qualifications for such things. And like, we have like a unconventional relationship, like in terms of like, I'm not related to her. And, so like people, no one really questioned it, but they, or when the hospice would come, they'd be like, what's your, and be like, I'm just the next door neighbor, whatever. But anyway, as of like 2 weeks ago, there's like, she has like a team of caretakers. And like, I'm not one of them anymore. So I've gone back to like a friend or like neighbor, like just like coming by. I still go over there pretty much every day, but like just not for like care reasons, just to like, have a cup of coffee and talk to her and whatever.
Right.
Which has been good for our relationship, I think. But anyway, I digress. So the way that that's related is that it became this thing where I don't know why. It was this way, but obviously, like in work, right? Like the things I do for work, like music, and, songwriting, writing, acting, whatever, entertainment. I wouldn't talk about that with her really. And which, like, I mean, a little bit, because she used to work, she was a script supervisor in Hollywood, actually. So like, she's interested in like the Hollywood aspects, but not so much. I don't know. She doesn't really ask me about work. She asked my partner about work. I think she kind of thinks my partner, because my partner makes more money than me, I think she kind of thinks like I'm a little bit of like a house husband or so. I don't know what she thinks, but she always asks my partner about work, and she never asks me about work.
That's fascinating.
Yeah, and I'm not like really one to be like, whatever. So when I was over there pretty much every day, like it's like I never even thought of myself as like, or she knew me super well because I was there a lot.
Right.
But like she didn't know this real part of my life, which is like my career. And then obviously in my career in like entertainment stuff, it's like I'm sort of going through this stuff every day that's like super heavy and like, like thinking about a lot of stuff. And it's like, I don't really bring that into that space, because it's like, how do you talk about that with like, casually when you're like, what are you working on? Oh, well, I have an album coming out and I've been spending like 10 hours a day with my dying neighbor. Like, that's like, how do you say that?
Like,
I mean, yeah. So it's kind of like these two worlds that don't really intertwine. But then I had like a release this week, and my partner came over to like see her with me. And my partner was like, kind of like, oh, Mal has this release coming out and like this, that, and the other. And Dita was asking me about it and stuff, because she was interested about like the mechanics of, but I had this feeling of like, this is really awkward. Like, I don't, like these worlds meeting is like weird to me. I kind of almost don't like it,
Well,
like,
you're in such a different role. In the role you're talking about, you're in a caregiver role and you're centering the other person's experience. And so to have your experience all of a sudden centered would be like, what?
Yeah, I didn't think of it that way. Wow, you are a therapist. Maybe that is why it was awkward, because I did feel weird. I was like, oh no, don't focus on me,
Oh,
But,
and that's like, even the way you speak of her, it's fascinating to think about, like, that this person is, if it weren't for you living next door, it sounds like this person might be alone in a way.
yeah, she doesn't have any family, but she, yeah, it is, at the beginning I was like, it is kind of kismet that we ended up living next door. Also because, so for her generation, she's not gay, but she had a lot of gay friends and felt closest to gay people, and actually like took care of a lot of her friends like when they were dying of AIDS in the 80s and
Oh,
stuff like that.
wow.
And we didn't know any of that when we started being friends with her, but it is kind of like a weird, I think, like kismet thing of like, she feels sort of closest to gay people, and then like this like these like queer trans people move next door to her. Like it's like a weird thing that kind of happened in the universe,
Yeah. Yeah. And also that we're in a situation over the last few years where really like you would get to know your neighbors in that way. Because if you were like constantly on tour or doing stuff like that, you wouldn't have gotten to know your neighbors, I would imagine. Because either you're gone or you're then exhausted. And then you're gone and then you're exhausted. And like,
Yeah. I'm one of those people that like always kind of talks to their neighbors, which my partner is always like, what this, you're so weird. But I will say something about the pandemic that I do regret is that like I didn't become that close to her until like after the vaccine, because I was afraid of like,
oh, of course, yeah.
But now that I know her, she's very she's absolutely not an anti-vaxxer. I took her to get her booster myself. Like I know that she is vaccinated and everything, but she talks like she's like basically like I'm built different, and like I've never had a virus and I was never scared of it, like that kind of thing. Like,
I love that. I'm built different. Yeah. That's fascinating because she's my parents' generation. Like, I don't know how old your parents are, but like my parents had me when they were older. And so they're a little older than she. They're 80 and 81. And it's so interesting talking to people for me at least, like it's interesting talking to people from that generation's perspective because it's pre-boomer. Like it's not the boomer mentality, which obviously gets so vilified in the media for some very valid reasons, but some not. But it's like,
yes. So generationally, yeah, I think it's the great generation, right? It's not the silent generation, or is it the silent generation?
It might
No,
be.
it's the great. Wait, no, it's the silent. I don't know.
I think it's the silent because it's the post-depression, but like born during World War II.
Well, this is what's interesting about that. She's Austrian, actually.
Oh, wow.
Yes. So
Whoa.
she has a very interesting life story. And she didn't come to the U.S. till she was 16.
Wow.
And so she was born right as the war was ending. And she was born in occupied Poland at the time. So I guess technically it was Germany. And then she lost her parents like pretty young. Well, it's not so sad, actually. Well, it is for her, but
plot twist.
there's so many plot twists. A lot of my friends are like, you should make a podcast about her, and I'm like, I don't even know where to begin.
I think beginning from the statement, she lost her parents at a young age, but don't worry, it wasn't so sad.
I mean, it is sad, but it's just complicated. I mean, I'm pretty sure were Nazis. Like, I mean, listen.
You have to make a podcast about this now. Like I know this is the molecule of dopamine speaking, but I'm just like, I will make this podcast. We can recruit Mara for this podcast. I'm like,
well, Gabby was like
involved.
Yeah. Gabby has been like, my partner's a podcaster, and was like, if you make a podcast about, because I started, when she first got sick, I started doing a lot of microphone interviews with her, but that was sort of before I learned that, some of her stories about her life are, after I got to know her better and like we became really close, like I realized that she lies about some of her life stories, kind of stuff. And so Gabby was like, you have to be really careful if you're going to like make something about that. And like, I don't know, you should really like, you'd have to get like a legal team and whatever, because I don't know, whatever.
That's fascinating.
She's the most fascinating person I ever met. But anyway, all this to say, so yeah, she was born post-war, right? But not in the US.
Right.
So, and like an orphan by the age of 5 in Europe in the post-war. So I think that really she has a way different worldview than like, people of her age who were maybe born in the US. Like she seems much older than 79, if that makes sense.
That, from what you're describing, that does make a lot of sense. Like my parents have a little of the forever young about them. It's interesting because they have the tinge of like hoard everything, take care of yourself, don't always take risks. But they also have the forever young, anything is possible. And so it's
Yeah.
like,
That's part. I think that's why she resisted getting hiring caretakers for so long, because she has that thing where she's like worried about running out of money. And I was very much like, don't worry about it. Like I will help you, like whatever. Like, but then like she has money. She has money. She's like, you know what I mean? Like it's one of those things where as you get to know her, you're like, wait a minute, like you're fine. Like, like why were you acting like you were destitute? And like and I'm like an idiot, so I'm just like, yeah, of course, like she must not have money, like I'll help her. And then like as I got to know her, I was like, oh, she's plenty of money, she just doesn't trust people to like know that or like share that, or like it's one of those things.
It comes down, the trust thing is exactly it, where it's like, it's so funny because coming from like the artist world, I'm sure you've experienced this as well, where like we all are like, oh, let me spot you, or oh, I've got you, or like things like that, because there are times when like you just genuinely don't have money or your friends don't have money, and you're just like, yeah, as a community, we have to support each other.
Yeah. She told me that she was like, yeah, like destitute. And so I like bought her a cell phone but it was a whole thing. She kind of fought me on it because she's like, I've had a landline for 50 years, but she stopped being able to get to her landline, like mobility wise.
Oh, yeah.
And her landline would only make local calls. So she couldn't call my cell phone, which has a New York number. And so I was like, so I just got her a cell phone, and I got her one of those like Cricket ones, the like, but they make a smartphone now, and she used to be good at email, so I got her one that she could email. I gave it to her, and she was like, I don't want any of these tchotchkes. I just need to make phone calls. And I was like, okay, I should have gotten you just like a flip phone. And then she was like, I hate this, but like she uses it she discontinued her landline. She uses this cell phone for everything now, but she still is like, I hate this. I hate technology. It's useless. And I'm like, like it's like one of those things where you're like, oh, okay, like whatever.
And yet you use it. That's like, my mom doesn't understand that like there's a difference between iMessage and text message. And so like she always says like, I don't get text in the house. I'm like, no, you can connect on the Wi-Fi because they have like bad reception just in the hills where they are. And like my phone doesn't work there either. Like they got like one of the like cell booster things, and it still is kind of, but my mom was like, no, it doesn't work. And I was like, no, just put it on the Wi-Fi. And so I was sitting in the same room, and I sent her an iMessage and was like, see, it works. And I was like, see how it's the blue bubble? That's over Wi-Fi. And my mom just flat out says, that only worked because you're sitting next to me.
I know. Sometimes it's easier. I've realized that sometimes it's easier to just, because she'll get really mad if she doesn't understand something. And sometimes she's like, I can't think of an example, but she'll be like, why are you so dense? And like, I'm like, yeah, no, that's not actually what's happening. Okay, yeah, you're right. I'm wrong. Like, sometimes it's easier just to be like, yeah, okay, it was because I was sitting next to you.
It was because I was sitting next to you. There's no way to be like, that went to space and then back to your phone from my phone. It did not occur because we're in the living room.
Multiple times she's called me over because she was like, I'm not getting calls on my cell phone, it's broken. And it's because she turned the volume down. And then like, I'll turn the volume up and she's like, did you fix it? Did you update it? And I'll just be like, yes, yeah, I updated it. Yeah. Like sometimes it's not even worth it,
Oh my God, I love this. I love this so much.
She's really funny.
What is she gonna do? And are you going on tour at all for your new release? I was just like, oh my gosh, what happens if you have to leave for a little bit?
So actually, this was a thing that happened. This is how she ended up getting more caretakers, right? Because for a while, it was like coming to a head where it was like, it was clear like she needed someone there like 24 hours a day kind of thing. And I would go there like every morning. We had like a whole morning routine, whatever, except for Sundays and Wednesdays, when this other person, Gloria, who's awesome, would go, who's actually like hired and like knows what she's doing. But we had a week planned to go to Florida. to, I got like a top surgery revision that it was like the last year that the surgeon would do it for free, basically.
Oh.
And then like after, it was like a local anesthesia. It was like not a big deal. And then we're also supposed to have me and my partner's parents meet for the first time.
Oh my gosh.
We had this scheduled. And so it was like coming up. I was really nervous, and I was like talking to Dita about it. And we was sort of like, what am I going to do? Whatever. Because she has these other caretakers, but they're on a fixed schedule, right? So they can't. So what I ended up doing is I found a care agency. And they offer something called respite care, which is for like family members who need a break usually, but it's like short-term caretakers that you can hire, right? So they found somebody named Howard, and he came, and she really liked him. And it was like the day I was leaving was like, the first full day they had with each other. And she was like, I love him. I think it's going to work. And I was like, oh, thank God, whatever. So then I left, but then it's like, things are so like strapped right now, and caretakers are needed like everywhere. So like maybe halfway through, it was like Howard had an emergency and couldn't come anymore. And then, so their agent, the good thing about it being an agency is the agency replaced him with somebody
else. Yeah.
But there was like a 2-hour period where she was like alone in the morning. And so I ended up having to call my friend Elise to go over there. But it was like a really, really stressful, because I was like, I'm not there. Like I feel so horrible, But, so after that though, she was like, the new caretaker, she warmed to her, and she's like, she's fine. I don't like her as much as Howard, but like whatever. Yeah. And
sorry, Howard.
Sorry, Howard. She liked Howard because Howard was strong. But after that, though, it was sort of a thing where she was like, I want to figure out like a regular schedule, and like I don't want you to have to be on this schedule. I want you to be free to come and go, like whatever. So then we like figured out a regular schedule, and now she has like whatever. And then like if somebody can't do it, like the other week, one of the caretakers had to get their taxes done, so she couldn't do her like 4-hour shift. So like I'll just do it if they need like whatever. But other than that, like I just come to visit, and the like medical stuff, I haven't had to do the medical stuff for like a few weeks now. So I think she kind of did that on some level to sort of open me up to be able to do like work stuff and that without having guilt. But she didn't say that. She was like, I don't want you on my schedule because you mess things up, like.
It sounds like in a roundabout way, her intention was so that you could, do the you stuff. But she wouldn't say that.
Yeah, no, I think I kind of speak her at this point, and I think that's what she's saying, like, I don't want you on my schedule, you mess things up. But I think what she's actually saying is like, I don't want you like being obligated or whatever. Yeah.
Aww.
Yeah.
Oh, she really does sound like such a character, and that like hearing about your relationship, have you ever had a relationship with someone like this? Like,
well, like in terms of like a stranger or a grandparent, I was close with my grandparents, but not like this, because obviously they weren't right next door.
Yeah.
But yeah, in terms of like strangers, I am one of those people who sort of like gets to know strangers by accident a lot, but never like this intimately. Like I've never been like, in someone's home, like spending so much time with them like that,
Yeah.
Definitely different. And I have never had to do end of life care stuff with somebody before. So that was definitely like stuff. I mean, it's important to think about, it really puts a lot of things into perspective, and also nothing at all into perspective, Does that make sense?
It does. And like, the things you're saying, it's kind of like what popped in my mind was like the idea of like kinship relationships, that like those are kind of undervalued currently. At least I perceive it that way, that people, like how people kept asking, like, are you like, what's your relation kind of thing, where it's like the idea of having a kinship relationship with someone that you're not blood related to is like not common in our current society. Like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, where I'm like, there's that aspect, and also like end of life care, like in a way we kind of there's been much written about this, about like how we sanitize death, and it's really like a gift and an honor to be able to help someone with that transition. And so yeah, it's fascinating that that is something that you have taken on, and it sounds like also it's deeply fulfilling for you to show up for someone in this way.
Mixed emotions for sure. I mean, I think I have a very like rigid moral compass, which my partner and my sister are always like making fun of. But I sort of just like, if something makes sense to me as like this is the right thing, it's really hard for me to like budge from that. And sometimes that's, well, I'm sure you understand that as someone with ADD. Um, it gets me into trouble, like, if I have like a verbal disagreement with somebody, because I'm like, but this is right and that's wrong. But with this, I mean, I just sort of was like, she was like, she'd be like, come over, and I'd be like, yeah, I'm not going to say no to her, like I'm not, that it just seemed like the right thing to do. But yeah, I mean, it is interesting, right? Because you have to make sure you're not like neglecting your family relationships too. Like here's another twist. This would be a twist on the podcast of this person. My actual grandmother died like while I was taking care of her. Yes.
Oh.
But it was earlier on, so like I was able to go for a few days for the funeral. But it was like for sure like weird mixed emotions, and like definitely weird talking to her about it and stuff. And like, but it did give me this perspective, right, of like, I really do think that there are good deaths and bad deaths, like if that makes sense. And like, you're right, we sanitize death a lot in our culture. We don't talk about it, we don't think about it. And like, for me, it's like my grandmother, she died, she was 94, and she was still had all of her mobility, lived alone, had a caretaker who would come for a few hours in the morning, but like was largely independent, had a lot of family around her, was very like had a lot of social engagements, like, and she had a stroke, like watching TV, and she was sort of on life support for a little while, but not conscious, and like with pain management and stuff. So like for me, I'm like, she passed away pretty peacefully, we can imagine. I mean, we don't know for sure, but like they think from looking at the stroke that it was probably pretty instantaneous that she went out.
Yeah.
And with like her quality of life largely maintained up until being 94. And the last time that I saw her, she was like to me, like, I'm ready to go. Like, I don't know. She actually said, I don't know why God's keeping me here. I feel that I don't have anything else to do. To which, we're all Jews with gallows humor. So me and my mom were like, well, I don't know if God's keeping her here, or if my mom was like, I think my dad's probably paying someone off to keep her here. Because he died while having an affair, like 20 years ago or something. But anyway, that's a whole other family story. Yeah.
Now I'm just kind of just like, I wonder where in the lineage we're secretly related. Like,
oh, because that's right.
My family is also like, that's interesting that you said East Coast. Like my family, when they first moved here on my mom's side, we're East Coast.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. And that was my mom's grandparents.
Where are they from?
Like they moved to New Jersey and New York and then to Los Angeles.
Yeah. Yeah, they're my grandparents. Well, my mom's from Brooklyn, but then they moved to New Jersey.
Mm.
But yeah, my grandfather had a mistress, and he died with this other woman. It's a whole story. Honestly, I'm thinking I should probably just have a general podcast because I got a lot of tea to spill, but my family would hate that probably. So
You could do it under an alias.
yes, it's me, Dale Blum.
That's like I constantly want to start just like a low key, like either private or completely undercover Twitter for just like the ridiculous things that I hear, not in session, obviously. Like I would never tweet something like from a client session, but like just in my personal life, things that happen that I could never recount without like mortifying someone or like just the things where I'm like, this is weirder than fiction. This is funnier than anything I could have actually written on purpose. But like, I can't say it because I don't want someone's feelings to get hurt. But maybe if they didn't know it was me.
I do think that like real life is actually stranger than fiction. Like I really do. Like just people are so unpredictable in this weird way. But
yeah.
It's funny that you say that. What do you think about, like, I feel like on TikTok and social media right now, there's like a large swath of like therapist talk. Like there's a big, as a therapist, like, what do you think about? Do you have feelings about that? Like I really like it. It's helpful, but I often wonder, like, I'm like, ooh, if one of my therapists was like talking about me, a session with me on TikTok, even if they didn't use my name, I probably wouldn't like that, So
yeah, it's a really fine line because on one hand, I like as a therapist, I'm so excited that people are talking more about mental health and about therapy in general because it destigmatizes what it is and people are learning more about themselves and about the practice of therapy. And it's encouraging a lot of people to actually seek therapy. And that to me is really exciting because I'm like, yay, self-insight, growth. We love this. Fantastic. The thing that worries me is when people either make it about themselves, like that kind of guru kind of thing that's going on where people create like a cult of personality, which that's not therapy. That's a cult. Where if it's about following what a specific person says, like your therapy, as much as, it's interesting because therapy is about your relationship with your therapist in a lot of ways. And so
really,
if your relationship with your therapist is parasocial and you have this image of your therapist, that's actually not very beneficial. And so it's like when people post in a certain way that really highlights who they are, as opposed to whatever it is, the information they're giving, like, and this is only as a therapist, not as an entertainer, but I find that off-putting and not helpful. And also that like, if people post things that are like too specific is how I'd put it, because you can't, you tailor obviously like theory and your education to the person to whom you're speaking in session.
Right.
So like you can give information that might be helpful, but giving interventions over the internet is really dodgy to me. Like that's the thing is like TikTok for information. I love it. I actually like TikTok's my favorite social media right now.
Yeah.
Where, like I have discovered so much more even about like neurodivergence and ADHD and autism and like all the things that fascinate me and that I work with and like that I have in myself. It's like the two wolves inside me. But like, I find it fascinating, but I find it fascinating from like an information standpoint and as like a jumping off point to do something.
Yes.
Because like I feel the same way where the only times I will share anything that a client has said, done is a very general, like one of my clients is struggling with executive dysfunction, like something extraordinarily vague that like all of my clients are struggling with executive dysfunction. So it's like something like that. Or one of my clients sent me the funniest meme. Like I've got to say my clients are some of the funniest people I've ever known. And I mean, I adore them for many reasons, but like, just blah. And I asked my client, like, may I share this meme? And they just like, oh my God, yes. And so it's like, I'll share something like that. But obviously with permission, anytime I share something, even if it's like my client has sent me a meme or a TikTok, I'm like, oh, I found this really useful. Do you mind if I share this with my other clients? And they're like, yeah, sure. I've never had someone say no, but like,
it's good to ask.
I ask.
Yeah.
And that's the only thing that
ethical.
that I personally would ever share.
Yeah.
Because that was a really long-winded answer, but hopefully.
No, I think that's a really good way of explaining it, because like there is a difference between the people who like are sharing information and like resource sharing versus like, there's some stuff that like, some like nurses or sometimes professionals will like make TikToks sort of like making fun of their clients. And then I'm like, that's, you know what I'm saying? Like, there's like a creator who I really like, Nurse Naya, and she'll like post them sometimes and be like, because she's like a mental health nurse in some capacity, so she'll post stuff that people make like that, and will just sort of be like, this isn't nice, like this isn't okay,
Kind, or when people, the other thing that bothers me, I don't know if you've seen any of this, but like therapists will sometimes post like reaction videos to things where someone will be like complaining about an issue or sharing something that is troubling them, and a therapist will like stitch it on TikTok and offer their intervention. And I think that's completely inappropriate, because you don't have the consent of the person to do that, and all is this one snippet of information, so you don't have the context. That's not a useful intervention. Like, that's not helping. That's maybe the opposite of helping.
Meanwhile, it is a double standard, right? Because I got on TikTok when my therapist wouldn't let me break up with her. And I got on TikTok and I was like, my therapist won't let me break up with her. What do I do? And I'm allowed to say that, right? Because I'm the client.
You're the client. Yeah. That's what I told my clients, is like literally a client greeted me at a gathering, because like, I mean, I work, like, truth be told, I work in like the queer community, the ethical non-monogamy community, the kink community, and the neurodivergent community.
It's small. Yeah.
It's a Venn diagram that's a circle. And so like, even though I do work virtually and I work with clients all over California, like I always give people the speech of like, truth be told, we will probably run into each other at some point. I will be cordial. I will not approach you. If you say hello, I will say hello back, because it would be very strange if I pretended you didn't exist. That would be awkward and weird. But like, I will stay away from you in conversation. I will stay away from your partners in conversation as well, to protect your confidentiality. And like, I will not be playing in the same areas where other people that are my clients will be playing. And like, if someone has to leave, like, that's on me. I will do that to protect their confidentiality.
That's awesome. That's really great.
Yeah, so that's my vibe. And so my clients know that. But it was really funny. Like, I saw a former client, and they greeted me at a gathering, literally saying, opening the door, and they were just like, oh, my beloved former therapist.
Damn, that's really funny.
And I'm just like, it's me. And it's like, if a client says something, like, it's not like it opens the floodgates and then I say something, but it's like, if they acknowledge it, like, people are, that's on them. Like,
that's how I've always understood it, is like, it's up to the client to sort of, I was just thinking about this yesterday actually, because my partner was saying that like they were out, and somebody was like, what happened? Somebody was like, I'm the receptionist at your dentist's office or something. And like, I was like, I'm pretty sure they're not allowed to do that.
They're not supposed to say that, yeah.
But I was like, I don't know, maybe dentistry isn't like a HIPAA violation because the government doesn't consider our teeth as part of our body or whatever.
Right. The health. Oh my God. I was trying to explain that to someone not from the US, that they're like, why is dental care different than health care? Your teeth live in your mouth.
It's part of your bones. These are part of my bones. Why are they not covered?
Same with vision. Your eyeballs also reside in your head.
In my head. Yes.
Like,
yes.
Why? Oh my God. No, technically I'd have to check. I don't want to say they're not supposed to say that, but I'm like, I'm of the overcautious variety in this scenario. Like I said, I checked with a client before I shared a meme they had sent me.
Yeah, that's good. It's better to be overcautious than undercautious.
Yes. Yes.
One time my therapist came to my show, but I did tell her she could. So
I have not gone to any client shows. I've listened to music my clients have sent me.
That's nice.
Read books that they've written. Like I do, like, if someone sends me their stuff, like, that says to me they want me to understand that piece of them. And so I definitely, like, I'm on board for that.
I didn't mind. Yeah, I didn't mind that she came to the show. I kind of liked it, but I didn't like that she wouldn't let me break up with her. I thought that was bad and weird.
That's really, I mean, of course, like I said, like I adore my clients. There's for certain, it's called like counter transference, where you develop feelings about your client because you're having a relationship with someone. Like that's normal though to have, and you're supposed to discuss it in supervision or consults with your fellow therapist. For any therapists listening to this, we all have feelings, not necessarily like bad feelings or good feelings, whatever, but since you're having a human interaction, you do have feelings about what your clients bring up. Sometimes they ping on your own stuff. Sometimes it's just like, oh my God, we're going through the same thing, all sorts of stuff. But you're supposed to talk about that with your fellow therapist so you can manage those feelings so that your work is centered around your client. And if your client wants to leave, that's on your client. And even if you have feelings about that, you can have those feelings.
Well, you know, it's interesting. Like, I don't know what feelings she had about me, but like, I'm not accusing her of like having feelings for me, but I know that she had feelings about certain things that I would do because we would have to process them in session. And like, you know, for example, I'm sort of difficult to like, I drop off of communication a lot, and it's always been an issue, ADD issue. It's been an issue with friends. It's been an issue with like pretty much everything, right? So I would go on tour and I would be like, okay, I'll get back in touch when I'm not on tour anymore, whatever. For a while, she was like still counseling me while I was on the road. But like a couple times I'd be like, I don't know, like I can't schedule like next week or whatever. I never canceled last minute or anything like that. It's just like she would whatever go like 3 weeks without hearing from me or whatever. And we had to have a whole processing session because she was saying that like my lack of communication, it wasn't like she was like, it's scheduling reasons. It was her feelings about me being sort of difficult to get in touch with sometimes or whatever. And I remember spending the whole hour and I was so pissed because I was like, why are we processing your feelings about, like, you know what I mean? Like, how is that?
Oh.
Yeah. Anyway. And then, so then when I finally, and she was my therapist for 7 years, actually.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
And then when I was like, at the end of therapy, when I was like, yeah, I really think I should move on from therapy, whatever. She knows I have trouble like making decisions and also like asserting myself to people and people pleasing tendencies and conflict avoidance, right? So we did this whole session where I was like, thank you so much for everything. I just like really feel like, you know, I want to like whatever. And at the end of the session, I was like, so what do we do now? And she was like, what do you mean? We scheduled for next week. And I was like, what? And she was like, well, and it's a termination process. You don't just end therapy and like, whatever. And I was like, okay, like how long is a termination process? And she was like, it really depends. It really depends. So it could be, I would like it to be like, at least a few sessions or whatever. And like, I was like, I really don't know, like blah, 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 blah. And she said the phrase, I would settle for a month, is what she said. And I remember like telling my partner that. My partner was like, absolutely not, absolutely not. And so then there was a period, and I had already like started out a new therapist. And so there's a period where I had two therapists for like 2 weeks because my first therapist would not let me break up with her until finally I sent her a text and was just like, listen, I appreciate everything, but like I honestly cannot do any, like we can have one more session and like that's my end, like that's it, like.
I think you probably can see in my face. I'm like, whoa.
It's nuts.
Mind blown. Well, it's fascinating because I think of termination with some of my clients, like there's like I have hired a bunch of new therapists over the few years for my practice because, like, spoiler alert, people have been unwell. It is.
How so? What's been something going on, or?
It's been like the Taco Bell Pizza Hut of like just global collapse. And so, like it's been like
yeah, for sure.
It's been a shenanigan. Like because like truth be told, I had started my private practice as being like the ancillary thing that I do with music, because as you well know, sometimes music is like, yay, I made you money. And sometimes music is like, I made you no money.
Yeah. And
So
it all depends on what email you get that day.
exactly. So I was just like, well, I'm always going to be making music, but I also live in late stage capitalism. So I need to make money. Um,
Feels
and
even later stage lately. I feel like this is like the latest stage. Everything's crumbling.
this is the latest stage. Yeah, this is the tower has fallen. It's weird neo-feudalism, and we're waiting to see what we do in the Renaissance. Is it actually going to be the rise of the Medici, or do we just eat the rich? Debating, but yeah, that sentence went a lot of places. Um, welcome to my mind. But yeah, I started hiring more people because also of the crossover of everybody knows me. And so yeah, it's been interesting because some of my clients I transferred over because like I hired people with slightly different specialties than I, and I'm like, hey, we've been together for like 2 years and now you're working on this thing. We accomplished all of these goals together. Like, I think you'd be great with this person. Also for like new intakes, stuff like that. But I was talking to one of my clients last night, and they were even saying, they were just like, yeah, just tell me which quarter is going to be my transition time. Because I had talked to them about a specific new person I was hiring that I thought actually would be a really good match for them. And we've done some really solid work. We've been together as a client and therapist for like 4 years. And so we already are in like the pre-contemplative stage of a transition to another therapist. And I was thinking about like, because of the duration of that relationship, it was brought up by both of us, prior, that at some point, like, I won't be this person's therapist forever.
Right.
Because I also do think it's really important, this is for therapists and clients out there, to learn from different therapists. Like, it's great to have a consistent relationship, maybe a maintenance relationship with like a therapist you've been with long term, but you're going to learn something new in different therapeutic relationships. That's just the nature of it. And so like, I was just like, yeah, I think this person's going to be a really great fit for you. And like other clients, by the way, have terminated with me. And what I always offer is if a client says like, I think that I'm done, I'll offer them one termination session where we can just talk about the wrap up, where it's just like, hey, I really hear you. Even if it's a 30-minute phone call, like anything that just honors that this is like the end of a thing. And then we move on.
That's absolutely reasonable.
Yeah. It's like, I'm trying to think of like fighting someone on like, that's almost like fighting for someone to stay in a relationship. If someone's like, I think we need to break up, and you're like, well, I don't. So
that's how it felt. And like, that was so weird about it. And actually it's funny that you bring up other modalities, because at first I tried to like sort of let her down easy and be like, I really appreciate this relationship. I just want to explore other modalities. I feel like seeing an OCD therapist might be helpful, maybe attachment theory therapist, maybe EMDR. And she was like, well, actually I'm getting trained in EMDR. And like, it was like it was like really difficult. But she finally, I think I did two termination sessions with her, but
oh my gosh. Even, especially like, I was just thinking of another pair of people that I saw where it's like, they ran into like financial difficulty and then they did really well afterwards. But then I like offered sliding scale during that. We did like, kind of flexible scheduling. And then when it came time to terminate, like, they were like, yeah, they were just like, I would really like to come to a session, but like, my partner already went to one of them, and like, I don't know if we have it in the budget. And I was just like, I'd be happy even to do like a free phone call with you, just honor the work we've done together. I'm like, it's okay. And
you sound like a really good therapist. At no point did I hear the words "I'd settle for a month" come from your mouth.
I'm just like, what? Because like, of course I had the feelings of like, oh my gosh, like these have been such wonderful clients, like, but I also did feel like if someone feels like, and I mean, these clients also were ready to flappy out of the nest. Like, that's the thing, is you don't hold on to. It's almost like we were talking about like good deaths and bad deaths, weirdly, but it's like thinking about transitional times. It's okay that someone's ready to go to something else. Like, it's painful in a way because it is a change, but at the same time, you can honor like, yes, this thing is coming to an end, and we can honor that, and that is okay. and it might be sad, it might be joyful, it might be relieving, all those feelings, but then something will come after it.
Yeah, I mean, change is really hard. Change has always been really hard for me since I was a little kid. Like, I have real hard times with like transitional times, and I mean that in terms of like daily activities. I had, I was one of those kids that really had an issue transitioning from activity to activity, and also bigger changes in life, which I understand is ironic since I literally like changed my sex, but like it took me a really long time to get there because so for me to even get to the point where I was like, listen, it's time for a change. Like, who would know that best? My therapist would know that best, like, I don't know. So yeah, that was a wild fucking time.
Oh my gosh. And even like you were talking about of like, oh, I'm bad with change. I feel that's so hard on transition times. I bank like so much time in between things just to shift gears because I get stuck in the liminality of it. It's like the John Travolta gif where I'm just like, just standing there in the room.
They say that about little kids, like, like when you're like, it's time to go, and like they freak out. It's like kind of makes sense because if somebody came in, you were eating lunch and they were like, get up, you'd be like, ah,
I am constantly alarmed. No, and it's interesting. I wonder sometimes about, and I don't know, there's been more literature on it lately, but like the connection between like trans and neurodivergence. I think about like my first partner is trans, and we didn't know that when she and I were dating when we were like 17, 18. And then I dated cis boys after her and was like, this feels different in a way that I don't know how to identify and I don't like it. And then later when it was just like, oh, it's because you're a girl, I was like, oh.
You're like, I don't want to unpack whether I might be queer. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, literally, I was like, does this make me a retroactive lesbian? Like,
in a way. I mean, yeah, that's a whole philosophical, like, Pandora's box. But like, I do think like, even if like you don't realize that you're trans, like I do feel like sometimes there is like something that people are picking up on, like,
yeah,
I don't know for sure what, but like I was failing at being a girl in like such a huge way, and in ways that like I always was confused about, like it was like I don't know, it's like people were like everybody would read something queer on me, right? Like there was never a time where I could be closeted. They were like, you're a lesbian. And I was like, I do like girls, but I also like boys, but everyone's saying I'm a lesbian. And so they must be right. And like, I don't know what they were picking up on, but like, it's interesting the things that we,
that other people like kind of clock before you do. Like because like, truth be told, I do still sometimes date cis men, which confuses even me.
Well, are you bisexual or pansexual?
Yeah, I'll be aesthetically attracted to certain people, but not sexually attracted to them. And then there are other people that I feel sexually attracted to that I don't even aesthetically like. And I'm just like, what trick of biology is this?
One time a girl broke up with me because of pheromones. One time we were literally like going to her house in a cab, and then when we got there with the intention that we were going to spend the night together. We'd been dating on and off for like not very long, but in the hallway of her building, she was like, I don't know, like you're so great on paper and you're really funny and like I like everything about you, but I think it must be pheromones or something because I just am not feeling it. And I was like, okay, bye. And then I took a cab home, a different cab. The other cab had already left. But yeah, she was like, I'm attracted to you. You're a good kisser. You're just, I don't know. It must be pheromones. Sorry. And I was like, okay. But oddly, I was like, at first, I was like, "That's bullshit," and then I was like, "Actually, it's like kind of a nice thing. If you like, it's not a nice way of saying it, but I was like, it is like sometimes there's just like nothing about you. It's just not a good match, you know."
Yeah, there's not that whatever that glue is. Like it's not there. And so
Mhm.
yeah, I think that is why sometimes against my better instincts, I'm just like, ah yes, I will date you. Why? I do not know. Maybe you smell good to me. Like,
Yeah,
but
it's
yeah,
interesting.
like
Yeah.
it's very interesting because also she and I like each knew about each other's neurodivergence before the other person. Like when she was just like, "Oh my God, I'm ADHD," and I was like, "I know," and she was like, "What?" And then when I was like,
Oh,
I too am ADHD," she was like, "Yeah, I know," and I was like, "What?"
yeah,
It's like,
yeah. It's funny that you're like, oh, like trans people are like mostly neurodivergent is like really funny because um, they're I have one friend who is trans who says that, and I was like, that's not true. And then I could only come up with one person that I knew who wasn't. But like it's like interesting because it's like, pardon the pun, but a chicken or the egg type thing.
yes,
Which because it's like, okay, like are we all like all trans people are neurodivergent, or like is it that like neurodivergent people, like people I guess specifically with like ADHD or autism, are used to sort of thinking of things in like outside the box ways. So if we start questioning one thing, you know, and we're like more prone to question our gender, like probably I don't know.
yeah,
I haven't fully formed that theory.
yeah, it's almost
Yeah.
like since we like to kind of pull on the thread, are we just more prone to like unravel the whole sweater and reknit it into a throw blanket? Um,
Right. Whereas somebody without ADHD or autism would be like, well, no, I don't feel like this gender, but that's a box I'm never going to open or something.
yeah, exactly. I'll just put that back on the shelf. Like,
But yeah, I do think I have a couple friends who are like, yeah. I mean, listen, we all have our stuff, but I have a few friends who do not have ADHD or autism. A few trans friends.
it's so funny. Like whenever there's like one of the friends in a friend group that I have that's like literally the one neurotypical amongst us, and we're always just like, I'm so sorry. Thank you for like holding it down and keeping it together. Like, because every event it's just like, oh, I'm sorry I was late for, and we all have the different reasons for being late, but it's like that's the customary beginning of an event is like the sharing of what made you 20 to 40 minutes late to said
Yeah.
event. Um,
My partner's sister also has ADHD, and our ADHD, the way that it interacts is really interesting because we're different. Like we're definitely different, and her way of processing like time, she shows up to everything an hour early.
oh,
Like if she says that she'll be at your house at 7, she's coming in the door at 6. Like, and so I was like, oh, I don't like that. But I also was like, well, maybe if I adopted that, I would have less stress in my life. Like maybe if I can't get there on time, maybe I should just shoot for like, 4 hours early.
I showed up. That this is also because of Judaism. My friend invited me over for Christmas, and I didn't know which Christmas she meant, like whether it was Christmas Day or Christmas Eve, because I didn't really ask because I forgot that there was two kind of versions there, and I just rolled the dice and showed up on Christmas Eve, and she had definitely meant Christmas Day.
Oh no, what happened?
I just showed up and she was like in her sweats with a cute little face mask on and confused as to why I was at her home, like very pleasantly confused.
What? So you were like, I'm not going to ask. I'm just going to see.
Well, I flat out forgot and was too embarrassed to ask and should have.
Did you come back for Christmas or no? You did. That's the mark of a good friend, though. Like you're good enough friends that you can do that.
She was just like, "This is amazing. I love you. Can I wash this off my face? Do you still want to come to the actual party?"
Yeah. It is funny, yeah. The Christmas, I'm also Jewish, so like, but it's funny, like the Christmas things that I feel Jews do, where like they're like, you know, my family would like obviously like drive around and like sort of judge people's Christmas lights, and like go to the Chinese buffet and like
Yes.
see a movie, whatever. And I remember talking to one of my partners about it, and she was like, "That's a Christmas. You have a family Christmas tradition. Like that's celebrating Christmas." And I was like, "No, it's not."
Oh my gosh. Yes. We would get Chinese food and see a movie. Like that was like the
that's a
vibe.
classic. That's a classic. Yeah.
Oh yeah. And like it's interesting. I was even thinking about like holidays and rituals and all that kind of stuff, and thinking about transitions, and literally all of those coalesced in my brain to going, oh my God, that's why touring is sometimes so incredibly strange.
Oh yeah.
Is
I was
all
not built for touring, but
yeah, it's like all of the rituals the only ritual is actually being on stage.
well, interesting, because I do think there are some weird rituals of touring.
Yeah.
Like I do think so. I mean, I think if you're touring with a band, every band has these weird van inside jokes. Have you noticed that? Where like at the end of the tour, it just becomes like these like four things that have become sort of a meme within this car, and it doesn't make any sense, and it's like or like these like specific things that you get obsessed with, and then you just start like referencing them, but it's only amongst these like four people. It's like very strange.
Right. Right.
And like there's the ritual of the like showing up to the venue and walking in and checking in with them, that's the part that gives me the most anxiety, honestly.
Oh.
And then you drop your stuff in the green room and you go and you like start setting up, and then you get after setting up like and sound checking and setting up the merch, I would always try to go like walk down the street and get a coffee or something, like just to be like, I saw the town, I saw it. Sometimes there's no time to do it, and then after you play the show, it was always the like running to the merch table and then doing the merch line, and then getting in the van after talking about the show, and then driving to wherever you were staying and doing the whole thing again the next day. Yeah. And sometimes it was like like you just stop at the same rest areas over and over and over again. One time I remember we drove up, we stopped at one rest area, played a show. The next day coming down, we pulled off for gas. It was the exact same rest area with like, and I didn't even mean to do it on purpose. It's just like,
that's amazing.
Yeah. It starts to be patterns,
It's so interesting, because I was thinking even about like like touring with Night Vale, that it's like, is it the same rest stop?
Oh, touring with Night Vale, I would put in a completely different category, because it's like so much easier. It's so much easier than like my own tours, because they have a tour manager, they have everything. Like I think Meg is the one that makes all the like arrangements for like where people are going to stay, and like where we're going to, like, they stop for lunch every day. Like they have like,
that's wild. I love that as musicians, we're like, you stop for lunch.
Yeah. And she has like healthy lunch spots planned out. It's like so nice. And they always get you into the hotel before the show, so you always have a chance to take a shower or like sometimes go to the gym or whatever. Like it's nice. Touring with Night Vale is taken care of.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Wow.
But I haven't done it in 2 years, so I am supposed to do that in June. And I'm a little nervous. I don't know. I guess I gotta practice.
Well, and also like in a way getting back into that side of music, because it sounds like, I guess, what was your relationship with music during this time? Because were you just like, it's funny that I said I was just like, you got to be a studio rat then. Like
kind of you to assume that I'm that kind of a musician.
I like that you're just like, a bold assumption to make.
No, because I know the type of musician like thinking of. And like the fact of the matter is, and I'm not being self-deprecating, I'm not a very adept musician. Like I'm a very good songwriter. That's my strength, right? So, and I can play multiple instruments and whatever, but I'm not like a theory nerd. I'm not like a gear nerd. I'm like, I'm not that flavor of like, but so yeah, touring went away, which in some ways was good for me because a lot of what I was doing wasn't serving me. Like I was just saying like yes to a lot of different tours, and I should have sort of pared it down to the ones that I don't know. Like I took like support tours that I was kind of like, yeah, it'll be good for us to be touring during this time, or I could, but like, I ended up missing my like niece's birth because I was in Ottawa with Titus Andronicus, and it's like, yeah, that was a fine show, but like, was it worth missing my niece's birth? No, like,
Oh, yeah,
so
yeah.
so like it was, but it's this thing of like everyone's on tour, and so you feel like you have to be on tour, and you're worried your fan base might forget about you, and that's how you make money, and so you have to be on tour. So when it was like no one can tour, it really forced me to like sit back and think about like, what do I want my life to look like,
Yeah.
So that was the silver lining, even though it was really weird and hard. But yeah, in the pandemic, so this is what happened. I started thank God for, do you know Terrorbird?
Yes.
Thank God for Terrorbird, because they signed me to their publishing side, like right before the pandemic.
Oh, got it.
So they set up a bunch of co-writes with like the writers on their publishing roster. So I was like making music I was doing co-writes virtually with people, and like I'd never done that before virtually, and like it was really nice. Like it was really nice to like remember like, oh, I like music. I like making music. They like ended up I ended up writing. I wrote a song. For a Netflix show, and then I ended up writing an instrumental for a commercial, and like that helped. And then I met this guy Kyle through the co-writing, and we just started working on like the songs that would eventually become this EP, like virtually. So it was nice to be able to work on something, even though like I didn't have a band, I didn't have a studio, like and then when that kind of dried up, this is the most fucking LA thing ever. Please forgive me. But I was lucky enough to get an acting job. I booked an acting job.
Excellent.
And a modeling job. And
you're now a triple threat.
Yes. So I am technically, and then another modeling job, and the acting thing did not go to series, unfortunately. But I and my partner at the time, I was like, oh my God, like this is crazy. Like, like acting and modeling is so much easier than music. And they were like, they were like, do you know people live years in LA trying to get booked on a network pilot, and you just like were like, oh, this is fun, and like just like picked it up, like this is ridiculous, whatever. And so I it was bad because I kind of got bit by the bug a little bit, where I was like, oh my God, this is so much easier than music, where I had to like claw my way.
Right.
But it's not. It's like winning in Vegas and being like, wait, Vegas is easy, And
this
so now,
great.
yeah. So now, but I am like submitting for like acting and modeling jobs and doing that sort of on the side now. So that's all. And then my pandemic hobbies. So that's how my relationship with music sort of like ebbed.
Yeah, kind of. That's fascinating because like in a way
acting is easier and harder. I haven't done acting since I was much younger. But in a way, it's almost like, for me, acting feels strangely like scoring work, where like someone's already given you the raw material, and all you have to do is like just foster that emotion in a way, which I'm like, oh, you didn't even make me think of the source material. Cool.
Yeah.
Like, and so whether it's, oh, I just get to make the sounds of that emotion, or, oh, I just get to portray and embody that emotion, I'm like, oh, okay. Like,
Yeah.
I'm like,
I mean, that totally makes sense. That absolutely makes sense. Yeah, for me, like, I totally get that. And like scoring work, that absolutely makes sense that would be a similar thing. For me, it's like, I mean, there's a lot of baggage because like it's like what you look like, and like, you know, it's like the rejection so personal or whatever. But on some ways it's like less loaded because it's like songwriting is the thing that I do, right? Like that's my craft. Like it has to be perfect, right? Sort of. Acting is like not the main thing that I do. And like in some ways, honestly, after like years in the music industry where like labels and booking agents were like, oh my God, we're such big fans, but we have to pass. Like it's like kind of refreshing to just like have people be like, nah, you know, like.
Yeah, they're like, your arms weren't at the right angle. We're not into it. And you're like, okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Or like I got to final callbacks for a CW thing.
Uh-huh.
And they were like, yeah, sorry, it's like just not gonna work or whatever. And I was like, oh, bummer. But then I was like, yeah, that was for like a 16-year-old, and I'm 30. You know, like actually that is good that I didn't get that, you know. But it's not like I'm so, it's like, you know, with music, it's like every time I would get one of those emails from a label being like, yeah, sorry, like we're such, or like they'd come to the show and be like, an agent would come to the show and be like, oh my God, you're so amazing, I love it so much. And then I'd be like, oh, like, can we work together? And no one would ever pass outright because they don't want you to be like, blow up and then they can come crawling back or whatever. So it is in some ways really refreshing to like tiptoe into an industry where they're just like yes or no, you know?
Yeah, it's so funny thinking about like that. I love definitive yeses or nos. Like, even if I don't want to hear a no, even if it's not my desired outcome, I'm actually much better if someone straight up says a no, because then I like can move past it. Whereas if someone says, oh my God, I love your stuff, and you're like, can we work together? And they're like, I love your stuff. You're like, that doesn't answer the question. Like, it's like a yes or a no adds clarity, and then I can, like, my brain can put it down in a way. Otherwise, my brain's like, would you like to think about this possibility? Would you like to think of the 17 possibilities that might spark from this possibility?
Yeah.
And I'm like, no, I actually didn't want to think about that. My brain's like, too late.
Yeah.
And
it's just like commit to something, like make a decision and like stand behind the consequences. You know what I mean? Like pass on the album, and if it gets best new music, then like egg on your face. Like, you know what I mean? Don't be the person, like, you know, because like, I don't know.
Yes.
Yeah. Although sometimes, I'm going to walk it back. Because I will say sometimes, like when I was like 19, 20, I interned for Tara Bird, like very, very early on in their licensing department. And I was a baby, and like every year I would try to get on their their sync roster, right? And like eventually they were like, we love you so much, you're so important to us, but we just don't think it's a good fit. And I was like, okay, sad, whatever. Yeah. But then when I got older and like had a bigger body of work or whatever, at some point they were like, we love you, your family, and like we don't want anyone else to rep you. And like it just like, you know what I mean? It like turned around in 6 years. So you also gotta leave room for like things to change and evolve and people to change their mind, because circumstances change, right? So
that is true.
So you never know. But the thing that bothers me more than like people reaching out, well, no, okay, it does bother me when people reach out to be like, can you help me? And it's like, not good people that you want to help, or like, you're like, baby, I can barely help myself. But the thing that I feel bad about is when people reach out and they're like, can you help me? And I'm like, I wish that I could,
Oh,
like
yeah.
a bunch of people reached out without naming any names. I put something out with a label, and then a bunch of people reached out to me because they wanted to work with that label. And I was like, but at that point, even though the single or whatever had done well for the label, I could not get them to write me back about this EP. So people reaching out to me being like, you're on this label, can you? And I'm like, baby, I cannot even get them to write me back about my fucking EP. Like, I don't know what you want me to do for you, like.
Yes, or you're just like, I mean, if they would even like message me on a regular basis, maybe.
They will. They message me when royalties. They message me to be like, we're sending you a royalty or whatever. But they would not message me back about my fucking demos, which is like.
Oh, music is like the least linear. I mean, as like, I guess in a way, it's weird to say I'm an entrepreneur, but I guess I am, because in all of the areas of my life, I've just kind of done my own businesses. So I guess that's a definition of entrepreneur, Pam. I think we solved that. But
Pamtrepreneur.
Pamtrepreneur.
No, Entrepam more.
This is going so many directions.
Sorry.
I love this. I was like, oh my God, what was I even originally going to say? Oh yeah, like that people will ask like for help in like music stuff. People have asked for like even like advice for like advertising for one psychology business or like marketing and things like that. And I would say that like neither of them are particularly linear. It's not like you go to school to do this one thing and then you get an internship in this one thing and then you do the one thing.
Yeah, that's like more like a traditional, like what people think of as like a traditional career path. But in the arts, it's always.
It's like
catch can.
Yeah, and so it's hard to give it's sometimes hard to give advice or help because you're just like, everybody's path is so different that you're like, it's not linear, it's not what you expect, and it's like everything is a unique case, and so you're just like, you just yodel at people.
Yeah.
Just yodeling, incoherent yodeling. So it's just.
Do you yodel? You yodel? It's interesting. Yeah.
It's just, it's very.
Sometimes I wish I had like one mentor who I could like ask questions to.
Yeah.
But I don't really have that. But
I don't know.
Sometimes the closest thing, this is not a mentor relationship at all. This is like a sort of weird long distance digital friendship. But the closest thing I had to advice on this was I like sent some of the demos to Mitski and I was like, is this too like genre-ly like different? And she was like, no, it's fine. That's the only advice I asked for basically on like this EP. It was like, is it bad to put out like a country record? And also, so she was like, no, it's not that different and it's fine also. And also I was like, personally, I was like, whatever, like nothing like a pandemic to put into perspective, like how myopic and stupid a lot of these categories are, and they don't matter.
Oh yeah, they don't matter.
Just put out whatever you want to put out. Doesn't really matter.
Do what you like. That's been kind of my theory of this, is like everything broke, so now we get to do what we like. Congratulations.
Yeah.
Thank you for being so generous with your time today.
Oh, no problem. It was a good conversation.
Thank you again for listening to this episode of Why Not Both? If you liked what you heard, please make sure to like us and subscribe to us on your preferred podcast platform. You can also come hang out with us on social media. We are at WNB the podcast, both on Instagram and on Twitter. This season, we are brought to you by Under the Radar magazine. Under the Radar is a nationally distributed print, music, and entertainment magazine and website. You can find them at www.undertheradarmag.com and feel free to support them on Patreon. Extra special thanks to our producer, Laura Studeris, who is literally a rock star. Thanks again, and I look forward to seeing you next episode.